Look at that.
You're live.
Big cover. Ah!
Good stuff.
Oh, that's always how we do it, man. It's real. It's balls and all. It's cellulite and fucking crusty bits and and little bits of fucking toilet tissue in the arsehole. It's all that. Welcome, fuckers, and welcome to Mastering Music, Mastering Life. Tony Jack the Bear Man's here with you. Nice to come back after a 2-week break. And today I'm really, really happy to say I got my friend, colleague, a guy who I have a lot of respect for, a guy who I've watched his journey from really a guy who just started from nothing and just seeing how he's done his thing, and he's in a very uncompromising fashion. And so, T-Rek, good to see you, man.
Hi.
T-Rek, a.k.a. Freak Show Disco, a.k.a. Thick as Thieves, a.k.a. Acid Agency, a.k.a.
I don't know half of what you're talking about there. What the hell's the Acid Agency?
Well, is it, you and Dave, you and Dave do Acid? What's the band?
Oh, we do that. We have a band called The Broken Acid Experiment, myself and Honey Smack.
Yes. Okay, all right.
So, Calendar.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Mark Calendar's. Yes. I caught up with Mike the other day, actually. He's out of school of
synthesis. Thanks. Yes, I know. He's
yeah.
Kind of
so, which is really good. We're going to show. Anyway, so Thick as Thieves. See, I didn't even know about Thick as Thieves until now, because we just sort of come in, we come out. So I didn't even know about Thick as Thieves. So.
Thick as Thieves, I don't have a lot. Well, I mean, they're my good friends, and I sort of, they book my gigs and things like that. But a lot of what they do is I'm not involved in a lot of their events and things like that. So,
I see.
But then, of course, they do a lot of stuff at Revolver, and I do a lot of stuff at Revolver. So, they're my good friends. They represent me, but I wouldn't. It's not like the other things where it's not my project. Thick as Thieves.
Okay, all right. So it's an association. Association. Okay, yeah. All right. Freak Show Disco Production still going?
Yes, that's just whatever I happen to be doing at the time. I throw under that moniker.
Okay. And you do anything with Dave?
Yes.
And as I found out the other day, for those who don't know T-Rek, T-Rek's one of those guys who is quite amazing in the sense that, because and if I get anything wrong, just correct me. So it's
wrong.
Yep. There's that.
No.
That, and
no.
And all of that. So DJing, production, you're a musician, you're a songwriter, you play drums, you play guitar, you have a label, and now you've just started, well, I don't know if you started, but last time we spoke a few months ago, you were telling me you were VCA?
No, I've just done a bit of guest lecturing there through Haberfeld. So.
Okay, so all right, okay. So what are the things what are you talking to kids about out there?
I did some ridiculous, I think that David Haberfeld, Honey Smack, who works full time at the VCA, had me in there to, I think it was sort of just to speak about my sort of journey and life in music as someone who's, basically made a living from music for most of my professional adult life, to varying degrees. So I think they have myself and people like myself come in and sort of talk about our journey to give kids, a realistic view of how you possibly could, live a life sort of making money from the music industry. I've sort of bounced between a lot of different things. So I think hopefully it was helpful for some of them.
I think for me, like what I found fascinating with you is two things. One is just the depth and breadth of all the different areas of the industry that you've delved into. You've done, they say that, kind of find your niche, but I think you've kind of done pretty well. If you look at, as a DJ, you still DJ solo, you DJ solo all the time. You're still doing production, you're still doing remixes, you're still playing, you're still doing gigs, you're still writing, you're still, so there's all these different facets that are going on where a lot of people struggle just to kind of find, you can engineer your own records, you can produce, you've got the technical fucking aspect down. But more importantly than that, for me, that stands out is from day one when I first met you, you always had a very, an uncompromising sense about how you were going about it. Even when you first started, when I met you in the early days, there was this thing about you that was like, I'm just going to do it my fucking way. And maybe you didn't know what that way was, but you just never struck me as someone that would just fucking follow the mainstream. It was just you had a vision. You did it your way. You weren't going to be influenced or worried. Or at least the impression I got was you weren't going to allow other people to unduly influence you, shall we say? You just had an artistic vision. You went with it. He said, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And I don't give a fuck about what the mainstream is. I don't give a fuck about what other people think. I'm not going to give a fuck about whether you like it or not. I like it, and that's it.
It's interesting to get that take on it, because I mean, you're talking about that was your impression of me early on. If I were to meet you now and you said that, I'd be like, well, yes, that's most of what you said is kind of correct. That's how I approach things. Earlier on, I don't think I was quite so much like that. I was just kind of running at something and trying to kind of just get stuff happening. And I think I just inadvertently didn't care about things like, I mean, I've always wanted to, all the the music and the artists that I enjoy and appreciate are all, unique. You know what I mean? And I guess that's what I've always, now I consciously, I can talk about it, but for a long time, I think I just did it subconsciously, as I was just always trying to find my own unique take on whatever it was I was tackling at that time, whether it was dance music or, rock music.
But you always liked but I always remember you as liking a lot of different stuff. Like when the first time you said how much you were a fan of Caius at one stage, maybe still are. But to me, as a guy at the time, I remember you as a guy that was playing electronic music. You had a real thing with hip hop, electronica, and yet you had this real thing about Caius, and it was like, wow, that's really cool. That's interesting. No, but that's what I mean. I think it's cool that. And I guess when I talk about uncompromising, it wasn't cutting your nose off to spite your face, but so many artists.
I'm sure I've done that probably.
Maybe you have, maybe we all have, but a lot of artists though, I think that there are a lot of artists who go through their career maybe not being sure of who they are, or they think they know who they are, and they go, oh, I need to be the next so-and-so, or I need to be able to do something that people can kind of hang their hat on, or fit in to something, be a part of something, not stand out too much because, oh, what do people think of me, what have you. And I don't think you, or at least I never got the impression that you were a guy that made music or created something with the mindset of, will Triple J like this, or will it fit in, will a festival fucking owner get me on, will this, you just did your thing.
Yeah, that's, there's an interesting thing with that though. It's like, yeah, no, I don't. Like from a, conception sort of point of music, I'm never thinking about that. But as soon as I start sort of getting into a piece of music, this is a funny thing. Sometimes you say something in passing to someone, and then they say it back to you. Like, so I said this to somebody about 15 years ago, and then they said it back to me about a year later. As I was talking to him, and I think I was listening to some music he was working on, and I said, oh, look, I start writing a piece of music. I don't know what the hell it is. I just follow the creative train wherever it wants to go. But at some point, as it's taking shape, I kind of go, okay, what am I making here? Like, this is electronic, but is it, a club song? Like, is it electronic for a nightclub set? Does it need to be, played by DJs? Is that how I ultimately envision it? Or is it more of an electronic pop sort of thing? And yeah, maybe Triple J or something like that will play it. But, and then I will sort of, change it accordingly. But like, that's more of probably a mix and production thing than it is, sorry, I've lost the word that you used before. But
uncompromising?
Yeah, rather than being uncompromising. Sorry, I've sort of trailed off and confused myself there.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, look,
all the time.
I never had that attitude of not caring about, specifically trying to go against trends or, not caring about the mainstream. I just always follow what interests me, and it's generally not, the more popular sort of thing. But then, I like pop music, I like anything that's good.
No, you do. You're probably one of the most fucking diverse people I've come across in terms of music and band knowledge. You will tell me about, oh, this band or that band that I've never heard of, and then I'll go check it out.
I just remember, because I haven't been in the mastering studio here for a few years. Do you remember I think we did quite a few sessions there was a double CD of mine you mastered a couple of years, about 10 years ago.
Yeah. And
I remember having nights and nights in here, and I was ripping heaps of your CDs. And you didn't know half of what it was. And I was like, oh, this is great, Jack. And I was actually telling you what half the great CDs you had, but you didn't even know what they were.
Yeah, well, it's true, because I've just given so much shit. And there's also a lot of stuff the other guys have done too. So, yeah, man, you'd be amazed. People go to me, you haven't actually heard that album? Really? No, I haven't. I actually haven't. No, bullshit. You couldn't have. It's true. You've never seen that movie, or you've never seen? It's like, nope. I was like, I haven't.
I'm the same with vinyl, because I'll go out and buy like half a crate of vinyl at some dusty old record store, and sometimes I don't get around to listening to some of them for years.
Do you find sometimes, as I do, that every now and again I'll just come across an old album that I bought because basically I bought it for the single on the back of the single. maybe picked a couple of tracks and decided one day, just for shits and giggles, I'm just going to fucking put it on, and just realised, wow, this is actually a fucking good album. I never realised how good it was because I never actually gave it the full chance when I first bought it.
Yeah, I was late coming to like iTunes and iPods and things like that. So it was only in about 2009 or something. I think I bought my first iPod and started ripping CDs into my iTunes and getting into that whole sort of thing. And that really revolutionized my just personal listening because I've been buying hundreds of CDs for years. So I had this huge digital library on CD, and I gradually ripped all of it into iTunes, and I would just fill up my iPod with all of these sort of records, and I just I program music for a living, so it's like when I get up in the morning, I don't have to think about what I'm going to listen to, so I just would have this iPod full of all my favorite CDs, and I'd just hit shuffle, and I was constantly because there's just so many deep tracks on these albums on CDs that I never listened to. And so like, things that keep coming up and you're like, oh, that's that CD, you know what I mean? And then finally you start listening to that album. And sometimes, it's 10 or 15 years later and it's like I just got obsessed with the PJ Harvey album that I've known about, and I remember the 3 lead singles, and I always liked the album, and I've had it from when it came out in about 2000, but then I just got obsessed with it 6 months ago. Couldn't stop listening to it like it was a new record. But
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I find that really, really, interesting because, man, there's so much shit out there. It's overwhelming for me just to trying to. When I was younger, it was a bit, not that you got on top of everything, but it just seemed easier because there was less of it around and less accessibility to it.
Yeah,
and there was something really. I'm sure you remember these kind of days when you'd have your favourite record store, you had a relationship with the guy at the record store, they kind of know what you like, you go in there and they say, hey, here's a stack of records or CDs or vinyl for you.
That record store's still there, it's called Greville Records. Go to Greville Records.
So that's cool, man. So, and you still have that experience of going in there, or do you find the online things kind of taken over that?
I still do both. I mean, I've always sort of shopped for music, in 2 separate ways. I used to go to, dance music record stores to buy vinyl to play in the club. And then, I'd more sort of go to rock stores like Rebel Records and things like that to buy probably CDs for listening to. And that's changed now because, the DJ record stores are not nearly as prevalent. They are still around.
I think Profile, the old Rhythm, Profile Records, I think, is still going.
Yeah, that guy.
Yep, that guy. Amazing. Fuck. But you know what? Speaking of Steve G, right?
Let's not go there.
No. I'm going to go there. I'm not there, but I'm going to go there. Steve G is one of those dudes who a lot of people take the piss, myself included. I'm more guilty than anyone in terms of taking the piss and in impersonating him and using the classic Steve lines that we all know and love him for. That aside, right? I'll give Steve at least some props to this man. If there's one guy that fucking is passionate and fucking still does it, I mean, he's still standing, man. He's still fucking doing it. I'll give him props for that. You've got some. That's fine. I will say I'll take your silence with whatever it's meant to be taken.
Look, I was along with Steve, but we butted heads a while ago, so
Yeah. All right. That's all right. Maybe we could broker a peace deal. Powwow, peace pipe, all that kind of shit. But no, look, I give Steve his due just in terms of a guy who's passionate and he's still fucking out there doing it, rightly or wrongly. I'll give anyway. So that is the end of the Steve G segment, brought to you by Profile Music. Fucking Steve, send in some records, cunt. No, I love you, Steve. No, I do love you.
Get on with the show.
Yeah. So anyway, buddy. So tell us what you've been up to of late musically. What's creatively been happening in the lab?
Well, I kind of burned out a bit on making club tunes. Oh, geez, where are we? Sort of 5 to 7 years ago, I think I started kind of hitting a burnout point with it.
Is that when the EDM thing started to kind of take on? When EDM as we know? I think that's when
probably.
Anyway.
That stuff's... I mean, that music sort of, I'll often hear about styles. Like, I knew about that kind of stuff, I think, a while before it became super famous, popular. No, it's nothing to do with that. It was just, I made about 100 records, dance records in 10 or 12 years, from about 2000 to 2012, something like that. And I just burned out on it a bit, and that's when I sort of swung back towards doing a lot more guitar music. And I had a couple of club records that came out, which did a lot of business and had me playing guitar and singing on them, which was kind of weird because wasn't a singer or guitarist really, any more than to just sort of play something in my studio, like play a riff until I got it right, record that, and then sing something until I got it right. So off the back of those couple of records that, did a bit of business, I kind of put together a live show with, computers and other musicians and myself playing guitar and singing, and that sort of led me into then starting a 2-piece rock band, which I did a couple of albums with and did some stuff overseas with. And so, yeah, I've really been just a bit removed from the club production thing for the last few years. I'm always sort of tinkering and doing bits and pieces, but I just haven't really been finishing anything and putting anything out. So about a year ago, I just sort of thought, you know what, I really need to just get back into it. You know what I mean? It's part of my work. It's what sort of feeds my DJ work, and DJ work is my income. The standard line I always say is my part-time career as a DJ pays for my full-time life as a musician.
Yeah.
So I decided I kind of look back at my own personal history of when I've been most productive in the studio, and it's always been when I've had the studio at home in a spare room, as opposed to, most of the last 5 years up until a year ago, 5 or 6 years, I've had a studio separate, somewhere else that I go to. So I moved.
Don't you find that a lot of time people got to have a studio at home because they, paying rent? No, but I found that since I was able to get to a position where I was able to have a separate premises to have a studio, my life just changed so much for the better.
Just when you got it away from home.
Yeah, just to have a separate space to be, to do the work and then be able to leave it. And now I know there's the advantage of having, I've got an idea, bang, I can go to my room and do that. But personally for me, I just found it was very liberating to be able to have a clear separation.
I think it's a bit different for someone like you because, excuse me, you're working for clients a lot. You know what I mean? You're not actually creating your own music. You know
Correct.
what I mean? So
yeah, that's true.
It's a bit different. None of my work is working for clients. I don't do any work for anyone except for myself. So
what prompted the separation? So
I think there's advantages to both. Originally I moved into the studio in Brunswick because I had a big space. I had a lot of equipment, and I could actually set up a rehearsal space. So I could rehearse bands, in the I could be rehearsing with the band, and then the guys could go home, and I could just walk across the room and get on the computer and make electronic music or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I decided to move everything back home, and I sort of just, it was a lot of work to kind of, to sort of get everything. I had 2 different storage facilities that I had gear in, and I had a room full of stuff at my mum's house. I had an apartment in East St Kilda and a something somewhere else. So it basically took me about 4 months to get all of this stuff out of 6 locations in Melbourne and get it all under one roof. And then so I sort of, at the start of this year, I sort of thought, right, here we go, and just thought I'd start sort of churning out music again, which I haven't done for years, and it just didn't kind of play out that way. I get in there and I work, but it's just been a slow process to really kind of to get things going. One of the things that I found was when I sit down and sort of try to, the way sorry, I'll jump around here, but
that's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah.
Is I've sort of I've been doing electronic music production for 20 years this year.
That's awesome, dude.
But the funny thing is, I've never really used any of machines. Usually people are making club music, dance music, electronic music. They're using drum machines and synthesizers, 303s, and things like that. I've almost never used that stuff at all, really, in my production. I've really just used, like a DAW.
Digital audio workstation
as a looping tape machine, you know what I mean, and sort of built things that way. So even if I do have a vintage synth, I don't even know how to use MIDI in its most basic way, really. That's all I do know. So I have these old vintage synths, but I've never even plugged MIDI cables in. I just turn them on and play them and then record that and then chop that up and stuff. So
that's so refreshing to hear that, because I for a long time I always felt like an imposter for so long because I didn't have deep technical knowledge of what was going on behind the boxes but I just kind of knew it worked. But for a long time I went through life feeling like an imposter. It was well, fucking hell, this is too simple, how the fuck. But it's interesting hearing you say that, and more people have sort of told me, look, I never really got it. I just kind of knew what worked, and that's what worked for me. And I think that's refreshing to hear someone else talk about it, because there's probably a kid out there right now who's probably thinking the same thing. I don't understand this, I don't get this, but you don't necessarily have to get it,
Yeah, no, you don't. And, there's still huge, holes in my technical knowledge of stuff, whether it be on guitar or everything I do that I think I do, quite well, from drums and guitar to electronic production and stuff, there's like each one of those, if you go that one, I'll say, here's the thing I can't do with that. You know what I mean? There's always like, there's one thing. It's like, I can do all of this and all of this, and there's a little bit in there in the joining sort of section that I'm missing,
So would you be fair to say you're predominantly self-taught in all your disciplines?
Entirely, yeah. Like, occasionally I'll go and get lessons. I just had, I went and got a couple of jazz drum lessons last year just for the hell of it. I had about half a dozen lessons when I was a kid starting out, and, every now and then I'll get a couple of guitar lessons from a friend or something like that, but I've never studied in any formal way of anything. No. But what I was saying was, anyway, with the 20-year thing, so 20 years into making electronic music, I started using, things like drum machines, and I've got an old 303, which, highly sought after little piece of kit, which I'd barely ever used. So I kind of, just got into that and sort of, got these machines going to just inspire myself to kind of be able to make dance music without having to look at a bloody screen. Because I think with the, with all of that digital editing stuff, I would sort of write stuff, you write stuff on a loop, but it's not really anything until you lay it out into an arrangement so you can take it out to play it. And I just kept getting stuck in that loop sort of mode, which is, a lot of people have that problem. They don't, they get stuck in the loop thing. But one of my strengths has always been arranging. Yeah. But I just felt like I'd walk down every single pathway, over those 100 records, and done everything I could with that stuff. So I went over to these machines, and it's really liberating to make music and not have a screen in front of you, and not sit at a computer, just to be tinkering. Yeah. And then the last couple of months, as I've started to, hook up all of those machines to the computer to basically multi-track record, what I'm playing, I started, I somehow tricked myself into falling back in love with digital editing. And, just by doing a couple of these songs with machines, I tricked myself into just falling in love with digital editing again, which is where I write really quickly and arrange really quickly and turn stuff out. So, which has been great, because it means that I'm now going back through the last couple of years of all of these half-finished ideas, and I can just sort of sit down with something for 2 hours and have a complete piece of music at the end of it. So yeah, that's been my year. Yeah.
What about live stuff? What's happening on the live front for you right now?
I sort of go out and play guitar and sing, like just sort of electric, just kind of dirty electric guitar and vocals by myself, or sometimes I take out, I've got a few other friends who'll come out and sort of play lead guitar with me. There's a band that I played drums in the 90s called Berserk, and we got back together a few years ago just for a one-off show for our old record label Rubber Records, for their 25th anniversary, and we did a show, and it went pretty well, and we all just sort of looked at each other afterwards and went, well, let's just keep going. So we actually went and recorded an album of what would have been the third album if we hadn't broken up, kind of thing, of all of the songs back then that never got recorded. And I've been mixing that with Reggie Bowman, who I do a lot of work with out at Scream Louder Productions. Yep.
Shout out Reggie Bowman.
So
I should get Reggie on the show one day, actually.
Yeah, you should. He's great, actually.
He's awesome.
He's fantastic.
A lot of time for him.
I've started a production duo with him, actually. We're called the Sit Down Gentlemen. Our first single's about to come out.
Oh, yeah, cool.
With a T-Rek remix on it. So that's just me and Reggie after 15 years. Reggie Bowman's in my opinion, a world-class engineer.
Definitely.
World-class human, more to the point.
Yes, indeed.
He's done all kinds of things. He won ARIAs in the 80s as part of Southern Sons. I think he was a bit of an 80s pop star for a minute.
Yep.
But he does like a real cross-section of music. Like he does a lot of, I know, big metal, Melbourne metal bands, like I know, who's it, like Dreadnought, I'm pretty sure I've done a lot of records with him. And who's the other one? I can't think of them now. Who was that Melbourne metal band that did a cover of Don't Call Me Baby? You remember that?
No.
It's funny. Anyway.
No.
So yeah, we've got a production duo together, and what else am I doing? Live stuff. I want to take that, using the machines that I've got at home. I'm sort of working my way towards something that's going to be a live show. I've often gone out, whenever I play live shows, like a live techno show, sorry, I should say, I've used Ableton Live really as a tape machine, and just had that coming out of multiple outputs on a sound card into, different effects units and whatever. And I've never really liked that, but it just seemed like, because, as I say, because I don't really make, most people go out and play live and they play off drum machines and all that stuff. Yep. Most of my stuff's sample based, you know what I mean? So it made sense to use Ableton Live, but again, I never really liked going on stage with a computer. It was always just a way to do it, and I had a lousy gig with all my USB things just fucking out on me earlier this year.
Yeah.
Can I swear? Sorry.
No fucking swearing.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, I don't condone that shit on this fucking podcast. Please.
So yeah,
it's a kind of a habit. Just please don't go there.
I had a lousy gig earlier this year.
Yeah.
Not that most people would have heard from out front, but I just, things were just USB things were crashing, and I was just like, I'm just done with this. I'm not taking a laptop on stage ever again. USB is just too unreliable to be an on-stage piece of technology, I think. So,
so you just rock it live and not rely on that sort of thing?
Well, I'm just going to use machines, so a 303 and sort of drum machines and synths and sort of kind of live sampling and processing stuff. So I'm just sort of building a way to do it. I don't want to write a live set to kind of go out and play live. I want to have sort of I want it to be sort of improvised based. So I've been playing around with sort of live sampling devices and things like that, so I can sort of go out, because a lot of my sound source stuff comes from creating interesting and weird chains. You know what I mean? Like a way I do a lot of bassline stuff at the moment is there's a guitar pedal called a POG, which will give you an octave up or an octave down. So like I turn off the dry signal, turn off the octave up, just turn up the octave down, so I can, if I play guitar, it sounds like bass, but it's a fully synthesized bass. You know what I mean? Because there's none of the original signal. Yeah. And then I'll just smash that into like a tube amp, and then something else, and then an old tape delay until it just gets really crusty and weird. And through doing that, like some weird noise will, like something will fart or pop or creak or do some kind of strange thing, and I'm like, ooh, and I'll play into that. Yeah. And then sidechain the hell out of it, and it's like, oh, there we go. There's a bass line, so I'm trying to figure out a way that I can do that kind of super aggressive hot signal stuff, like, do those sort of weird experiments and go, oh, that's good, and kind of capture it on the fly and then build stuff around it. So
I think there's something to be said about that in terms of having a prepared set with all the prepared stuff is all good, fine to a point. But again, I guess like as a DJ, like DJs may go into again, I'm not a DJ, but I'm assuming that DJs will go to a gig with they prepare. Most DJs I know always talk about how I'm preparing a set, I'm preparing a set. And you're preparing a set. But if part of DJing, again, in my limited understanding of the art form, is to be able to read a crowd, how do you so what you're doing is kind of being a band with a pre-thing, but you're also like a DJ who is kind of going, I can see that this is the vibe they're going for. I will continue on this, and be able to sort of instinctively read what's going on with the audience.
Well, one of the big guys for me when I was sort of starting out DJing was a DJ called Luke McD.
Luke McD, shout out Luke McD, fucking
Mr. Luke McD,
Mr. fucking porn mustache. I love that guy.
I don't think he's had that for a while.
Hasn't he? You stopped that?
No, it's there's always sort of traces of it.
Is he still rocking his afro?
No, it's been fairly kind of, he has a wife that grooms him now, so.
That'll do it.
His words, not mine.
Yeah.
He does. He dresses very well, and he always looks very sharp these days. And whenever I compliment on it,
what is Luke up to? I mean, I know he's fucking doing well. Is he got?
Luke took over his dad's business, Possum Pete, which is they go around possum proofing houses. You know what I mean? Like building fences and things.
And musically, he's still active though. I mean,
he still comes out and DJs at Revolver at least. Once every couple of months we have him down there, and I think he does the odd thing at Vineyard and stuff. So he just does gigs that are fun for him now. It's no longer his sort of income thing. He runs that business, so he just does gigs that he really enjoys. So I love Luke McDaniel. He's a good guy. He gave me a lot of really good advice, directly and indirectly. When I started DJing, I moved in with him actually, and I used to just follow him around to gigs, and I learnt a lot.
What did you learn, and what was the advice he gave you?
Well, he said, he basically told me, like, he just basically said, he's like, I never prepare for a set, it's just, you'd never do it because you don't know. He's like, I don't even plan what I'm going to play 2 records from now because you don't know what the dance floor is going to do. Yeah. So, and I've always stuck with that.
I think that's beautiful advice.
Yeah, because whenever you do, like occasionally you think, I'll do this and I'll start with this. It never works. Like it never lands the way you want it to.
Absolutely. That's why I always found, I was curious and I always kind of wondered, there's one thing about being prepared, and I suppose if you're playing at a certain event or a promoter wants you to play a certain thing and there's a certain brief, I can get that. But there's something beautiful about non-preparedness. I do the same thing with my podcast, mate. There's no list of questions. I know a little bit about the guests. Some people like you who I know, some people who I haven't seen for a long time, some people I know of, never met them, but there's something nice about just having just an organic chat with no real structure other than that. We are going to talk about music. We'll venture into some life kind of shit or whatever it is that we're fucking feeling at the time. But it's going to be honest, and it's not contrived, and it's not, again, just like no one's really here right now.
Yeah.
We just fucking chat like we normally would. Although in the past we used to exchange a lot more insults. I'm noticing there's a lack of insults coming on here, and I'm fine with that. But I used to always love you. Were always.
Are you talking about in the last couple of weeks when we've been in contact, or just today? Just today.
Oh, just no, today. No, you've been really well behaved, which is great. But
I don't think all of that kind of in-joke stuff comes across well to an audience. So I was actually glad we've got a few people peppered around the room here, and I'm actually glad they're here because I was going to say to you, because I thought it might be just you and me sitting in front of your iPhone. I didn't know how this worked.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, let's not do all of our in-jokes. I just never think that translates well to an audience.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. But
I'll be filthy with you as soon as the camera's
on. Right,
on.
okay, no worries at all. Although you are one of the better.
You've turned around a couple of times and I've been pulling shapes behind your head and stuff. So.
Now I'm happy. Yeah. No. Anyway, yeah. So okay, we've done your live thing, we've done your DJ thing. So tell me, I'm curious to know this, right?
Sorry, can I say something? Because I was actually, before we tailed off on that, just you were talking about not being prepared. You know what I mean? And sort of flying. As I've become, all my friends are sick of hearing me say this. I've become obsessed by the craft of stand-up comedy in the last 4 years or something. I got into podcasts. I listen to a lot of comedians do podcasts.
Who are some of the comics that you really like? You've been really getting into
comics. Guys are all, they're not that left field or anything, but Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K., Mark Maron, are kind of my favourite current guys. And
you like Stanhope?
I like Stanhope. Yeah, I haven't dug in enough on him. He's someone I've listened to hours and hours of him doing interviews with Joe Rogan and people like that.
Mm.
But I love when I hear these comedians talk on podcasts about the craft of comedy, and whenever they talk about just reading rooms and the way things are structured, all this stuff, it's so close to DJ culture to me. Like just that thing of like if you're in a band, I can go and play guitar and sing. I don't care if there's no one in the room, but like you can't DJ to an empty room. There's just nothing to play off. You can't tell a joke to an empty room. There's no one to laugh.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated when listening to comedians talk about the craft of comedy because I just draw so many comparisons to DJing in particular.
I've often found the irony or the paradox that comics who are, again, the comics I've come across and I've seen in my life, the happy laugh fucking thing, that's probably some of the most complex, darkest, most fucked up human beings I've ever met.
Yeah, I think they can be. I think it goes both ways as well. So I don't think there's any real. I think it used to be more like that from what comedians say. But anyway, yeah. Sorry, you were asking me a question, but I just wanted to put that in there.
No, I was going to ask you. I'm curious to know, mate. Like, what do you think what have been the biggest challenges for you in all this time you've been? Has there been one or two, or have there been any particular even a particular thing you've gone through that's been like huge, like a massive fucking thing for you to overcome in your career so far?
Yeah, it was actually the most success that I've had. In the traditional way that say people would gauge success by having a number one record and then having another big sort of top 10 record. Suddenly having name recognition everywhere, playing really big gigs, getting paid really, really well. So like if you define that as success, so when I had all of that. It was actually quite alienating because I suddenly ended up in this sort of spot where I was sort of, I'd fly over to a big club in Adelaide or somewhere and I'd sort of get put in this main room and it was like a really commercial club and I just didn't have the music for it, nor did I want to, and I'd sort of, blag my way through it and it never went too badly, but all of a sudden I was sort of, flying around Australia and I was just, you as a musical person, you're kind of working towards something. You think, like subconsciously, you're kind of working towards something. You're always sort of hoping for some more success, even though I was never putting out records going, I hope this one does really well, and I hope this one means I make more money. But you get all of that stuff, and I sort of felt like I should have been happy, but I was actually miserable because I sort of got backed into this corner of the industry where I was just not. I just thought this is not where I want to be with it, and that was where I had to that's where I kind of, around that time after that was where I burnt out and just didn't want to look at club music anymore and kind of just started playing rock bands, 3 or 4 nights a week to 10 people. Mm-hmm. So that's been actually like, it's been a huge curve of really the last 5 or 6 years from, having that huge sort of success and then kind of crashing and burning from it and then sort of falling into this sort of real hole. And then it's been a very slow climb out of it, actually, like over the last 3 or 4 years. So that's probably the biggest thing I've faced career-wise.
It's not an uncommon thing. I think for people people's perception what they think success is, and then they get that is, and usually we're talking in terms of commercial stuff.
Yeah.
And handling failure is one thing, but I think handling success is also another, and you see it, and I see it happen a lot, and well, like I'm here now, and then but maybe it's a case of what's next. Like, okay, I'm here, I got number one record. What's next?
Yeah, I think some people have that. I wasn't. What's next? It was just like, this isn't. I kind of had something.
What you expected?
I
Maybe it wasn't what you expected to be.
No, it was just creatively. I wasn't able to really do what I wanted to do. I think around that time too, like, DJing really changed a lot for me when it all went digital. It was funny because, the CDJs coming through in digital was great for me in some ways because I'm a producer, so I could really easily burn a CD and take it out and play it at a gig. So that was fantastic. I actually bought my own CDJ and used to take it around a road case for almost 5 years before the CDJs actually came in, just so I could play my own shit. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't have time to cut a dub plate of a track I just made 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But so when it all went digital to the point where all the record stores really quickly closed, I think that was back around 2008.
Yeah.
Sort of, I think the CDJs were sort of everywhere in around 2006 or 7. All of a sudden, everyone had them.
Mm-hmm.
And in that few years when all the shops closed, it really changed DJing for me because every week I'd go out and I'd go shopping in the city and I'd go to this store and that store and you'd see this person there and other DJs, and it was just the real excitement about sharing music and finding stuff. And it was just, white labels, like, what is this? I don't even know. Is that a bootleg of something that's, and you get something, think it was a cool record, and then you'd hear it on the radio and you go, oh, okay, I didn't even know that was a song, and somebody's ripped it off. And just that whole thing, like, so I found that quite alienating. That really sort of killed a lot of the love of DJing for me, as much as I like buying music online as well.
Yeah.
But I've missed my point a bit there. What were you saying?
We were, I don't know what we were saying. See, I've lost my fucking plot here. See, I just sit back and let the guests fucking talk what they want to fucking talk about.
No, damn it. I was
someone come around and let us know.
Yes.
You're talking about
questions? Where are the questions? Oh, yeah, questions will appear here. No questions.
No. So this is the beautiful thing about just not knowing what's coming up next and just letting it fucking be and sitting in the awkwardness of it all. Not that's awkward, but you know what I mean.
Oh, sorry, I know what I was saying, I think.
Yeah, of course you do.
So anyway,
this is all part of the thing.
Yeah, so the digital thing, and again, I've sort of reinvented DJing for myself in the last few years.
How so?
By kind of getting into the key mixing thing. I never was interested in key mixing. I thought that was something that progressive house DJs did to kind of make everything sound smooth and perfect. But then I kind of just had a sort of thought a few years ago. I thought, because I like to play really mixed up, sort of eclectic, disparate sort of sets of music. And I used to kind of make things fit together. I used to re-edit everything before I took it out. I'd buy 10 tracks on Beatport and I'd just load them up into a little editor that I used to use called SoundForge, and I'd just chop things up and, give myself the right bars. So I kind of, like, all my songs, I knew what they were doing, so I could easily kind of just make sure my transitions went bang from one to another. So rather than getting the keys right, I would just edit stuff so there was no key stuff, so there was always drums that come in the right place. So I know that, like, when everything melodic from the track that's playing, goes away and it's just drums, that's when everything melodic from the next track comes in.
And it makes sense, yeah. There's you basically created so there would be no, it couldn't clash.
Yeah, but then I started thinking, I thought, what if, because I've got this big library of digital music, which I spent years kind of, collating and really keeping well organized. I thought, what would happen if I had it all in those? Well, someone introduced me to the Camelot system. Do you know what that is?
No.
People probably know. It's like looks like a pie chart kind of thing. So you have, there's 24 different keys, and it's sort of separated to like 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. And there's a sort of way you can follow keys. And anyway, I just found it interesting. So I went through this long process of sort of, key mapping all of my stuff. And because then what I realized is I could use elements of songs sort of against other things. So I could use, so the ambient melodic sounds in a breakdown, I could sort of then turn that into a looping part, which then became like a synth part over a new track that I bring up. And so just that kind of stuff.
Not dissimilar to the way you approach your live music. It's not dissimilar to that approach.
It is, yeah. So it actually, and with, the CDJs are getting better with their loop functions and stuff, your 32 beats and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really able to kind of re-edit on with the new Nexus Pioneer stuff and all that stuff. Like I really feel like I'm studio producing, like when I play live, like I'm just doing this the whole time.
Yeah. Does that shit automatically, or I don't know if it has or it does, I'm assuming it does. Does the new digital DJing shit now pretty much work out keys for you? Does it?
Yeah, like if you put it into record box,
Does
it will key map stuff, but it's
Right.
not very reliable. So you're
Okay,
better off
right.
getting the mixed in key software and running it through that. Does
Right.
better
So
job.
it still pays to kind of do your own and be
Yeah.
have it catalogued.
Yeah. So as we talked before about, like, I don't organize sets, but I actually do a huge amount of organization of files in my digital library now. So I kind of have all of these places to go. So it's a way to kind of join, and it makes me, I've always been pretty adventurous and taken a lot of risks DJing. Like it's just no fun to just constantly play stuff that is going to go down well. It's fun to sort of dig yourself a hole and then try and get out of it. But
I think that's the thing. I think people that can become comfortable in being uncomfortable, usually the guys who produce some pretty fucking amazing results.
Yeah.
But you've got to allow yourself to go there and be brave enough to overstep it. And I think a lot of people are. I think they're too afraid to go, no, it's too safe. We're humans. We're addicted to security and wanting to know what's going to happen and safety and all that kind of shit.
And that comes back to that comedian thing. That's what they talk about. The guys who are thought to be truly great are the ones who can really sort of dig themselves these holes and then get back out of it and stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes me more adventurous because I will sort of have a track and I'm like, well, I don't know how this is going to go, and I'll just sort of throw it in because I know that if it's really just not kind of working and takes the edge off my set and it starts just feeling like you can sort of feel when something's not going down right, is I can very quickly just, loop it and just turn it into an element and just, sort of filter it and then just get out of it and sort of bring something in underneath it really smoothly. And, it doesn't sort of sound like I've gone, put on the brakes and kind of kick the needle off one track and put something else on. So it makes me, I'm constantly being, more sort of adventurous and trying
push boundaries
stuff,
and just sort of break rules and go against.
But I still constantly I'll do 4 hours at Revolver tonight. And there'll be at least 2 points where I just go, well, that didn't work, did it? Just part of it.
Yeah, but that takes courage too, because a lot of people would be that get it all embarrassed and want to cover up and whatever. But I think people enjoy honesty. Where it's like, hey, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Whoops, this was wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fucking disguise it or.
Yeah.
Claim it as a method to the madness. It's just I'm being human. I'm being vulnerable.
Although I just stay po-faced when I fuck something up royally. I just pretend like I meant it. Yeah. And then I'll turn around to my mate as soon as I get out and go, "Did you see what I fucking did?" Can I grab my bottle of water?
Yeah. No worries, mate. We should retrieve it for you.
Thank you.
Anyway. No, mate. I think there's a lot to be said on that. I think more and more people appreciate that too. People that just
Melbourne people, did you say?
More and more people I'm finding are appreciating authenticity and honesty in people who are prepared to, it's all good to sort of stand behind a veneer, and we all do, more so, some more so, but we do. That's just the way we are. But those people that every now and again who are happy to kind of just have enough honesty in what they're doing and say, you know what, I fucked up, or you know what, this didn't work, or just to talk about stuff in general, and bring more of a humanness across in what they're doing. Because kids especially, it's funny how still kids who, I hate using the term look up, but sometimes, not that I want to bring myself down, but sometimes I just like, dude, if you only knew just how fucked up I am in my own world and how, and that shit that you worry about and think about at night, I think about that shit sometimes too. Or, as I talked about the whole imposter syndrome thing, which...
The what?
Imposter syndrome.
What's that?
Imposter syndrome is when you go through doing something and you feel like you're a fraud. You feel like you just don't feel like
right.
No. So people look at you a certain way and you're just going, no.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I had that for a very, very long period of time, and only in recent times I can tell you that I finally got over that. And as I've spoken with other people that I know, they're going, oh yeah, man. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing about these people that I really respected more saying, oh yeah, I've been through that. And it seems to be more, I just thought I was alone in that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And realizing that, okay, well that was a bit self-righteous of me. There are a lot of fucking people who experience that. And I think that again, a lot of kids probably, one of the things that really drives me, I'm really passionate about is getting the kids, helping kids who are artistic and creative, sharing my story, being really fucking honest about it, as honest as I can be without sort of overshare, but at least it's relevant, but nonetheless honest. And so they don't feel like they're alone in the world. They don't feel like they're isolated. They don't feel like, I've had anxiety issues, fucking drug issues, fucking done fucked up shit. I'm, this whole perception of who you think I am. There's an element of truth in that, but there's also a lot that is not what you think. It's just your creation. So I'm no different to you, kid. I'm no different to you. No, started in the same kind of vein, same kind of insecurity, same kind of thoughts. But that just because you, whatever make it means, people perceive in a certain way. It's like, well, you know what? No. In the same way you talked about the whole thing about success. You reach a certain thing, and it's not all it's cracked up to be. You have a perception of it, but I think that's where kids get hope, and that's why I love these kind of conversations, because we're two guys who have, shall we just say, we're established people, we're industry, whatever you want to call it, but we're doing the thing that a 17, 18-year-old, 19, 20-year-old kid looks at us and is like, its nose up against the glass. Fucking, how do I get in? Yeah. Right. So we were there once, right?
Well, I was at the gig I was at last night. I hung out for a few hours and was having drinks with a couple of young guys who are producers, and they were sort of badgering me about, I'm working really hard, and your stuff sounds so professional. I'm like, yeah, but I still struggle. You know what I mean? I've just had a few years of I've just lost faith in my mixing skills as well. It's just like, I said, I was at Revolver last Sunday playing, and I played a few of my old records from like 10, 12 years ago, and I'm like, damn it, these sound really good, and I mixed these 12 years ago. Why is it that I think now that I can't? You know what I mean? And it ebbs and flows, you know what I mean? Like, and then I've been mixing a lot recently, taking a couple of things out, and they went really well. And then I took something out last night and just went, what the hell was I doing with that? So you don't get to kind of ever really I don't ever want to be. I don't ever want to go, yeah, well, I'm great at mixing now, and that's just something I can really do. It's like I'm probably, that's where you sort of bottom out, I think. So I want to constantly be kind of wondering if it's good enough.
Well, I think there's got to be a point. I think there's got to be a point though where you kind of realise that, okay, I have a certain level of competency here and enough to be able to market it, because people wouldn't come in and pay you money if they didn't feel you had that. But you're right in what you're saying. There's I don't believe there is that point of like, okay, I've now cracked the code, I've sorted it out, and where'd be the fun in that anyway? Because if such a place did exist, then it's like knowing the end of a movie. It's like, what the fuck? All right, I know what happened. I'm over it. Like, I'm not going to sit and fucking rewatch that movie again.
It's not fun if it's not a challenge.
Yeah, no, I think it has to be, and I think that depending on how much of a challenge and how you frame it too. Again, it's just too hard for me. This is the challenge I want to fucking overcome. And I'll tell you one guy who, I mean, obviously you're an obvious exponent, but there's one guy who I know for a fact who he literally goes out of his fucking way to put himself there. It's Phil K, and he's doing this project now with Yothu Indy, and Gavin Campbell and the guys in New Breed, where they're basically taking all of music and they're just rewriting it, if you will, but using their music, and this is now going to go on fucking. This is going to be part of the this great big Australia thing on the Opera House. And I mean, it's fuck. But Phil just said, this is something I just thought, this is so far out. I just wanted to do it because it was just so fucking hard. I wanted to fucking go in there and see if I can. He seeked it. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, I totally get that. I did a performance in an orchestra last year, and that was through the Thick as Thieves guys, and that's why I jumped at the
opportunity. Who was your orchestra? Was it just
It was a chamber orchestra put together by a conductor called Mario. I can't remember Mario's surname now.
Von Vidovich. We'll give him a Bloom. We'll give.
But
Von Stuyson, Halton, fucking.
Can't think of it.
We'll give him anyway.
But, so the thing, Mike Toner, who runs Thick as Thieves, it kind of. Put up this idea to kind of do something with an orchestra, and I sort of end up taking the reins and sort of production managing the whole thing as well as playing at it. But the thing that I really wanted to do was I wanted to score for a 12-piece chamber orchestra. I'm a self-taught drummer that doesn't read music, but I was like, damn it, I'm going to write for a 12-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
So I just, went and bought a plug-in pack that had, all the virtual classical instruments that I needed, all the strings and the horns and whatever, and just sat there night after night, like playing things on MIDI until it sounded like, a virtual version of an orchestra playing arrangements to pre-existing songs of mine. And then I wrote a couple of songs specifically with that as well.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, that was about 3 months work. And then I sort of had to nervously kind of, get it notated and transcribed from MIDI and then send it to the conductor and then just sort of wait and see what came back. Like, because I don't know, like, you know, sometimes I had like 8 instruments all kind of playing one note at sort of different times and stuff, just because I thought, I was like, what does it sound like if an orchestra all just plays one note in the same rhythm?
Yeah.
And he came back and he really liked it, you know, and then he put me in touch with an actual arranger, and he kind of helped me knock it into shape a bit more and sort of flesh it out a bit more. And then, yeah, a couple of months later, I was on stage at Revolver actually with a 12-piece chamber orchestra, singing and playing guitar with, you know, electronic backing tracks and
How'd it turn out?
It's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, actually.
Wow.
Like, musically, yeah, it was unlike anything I've ever done, really. So it was such a huge build up to it as well. Plus, I was sort of production managing the whole thing, so I was involved in everything from the staging and the lighting to logistics and stuff. So it was very stressful, you know what I mean? But
hard not just fucking writing something, let alone fucking doing everything else alongside it.
Yeah, so it was very challenging, but it was fantastic, and hopefully we're going to do it again next year, actually, because people are constantly. I think I've had a one-on-one conversation with every single person that came to that show that night, because every time I set foot in Revolver, a new person comes up to me and goes, "I was there that night. It was cool." I was like, "Thank you." So,
no, man. Well,
yeah, to all those people who keep asking me, we will do it again. I'm just not sure.
I think the first time I recall because we've had a few different things now with DJs with playing with orchestras and whatnot, and we recently had was it fucking not Global Underground? Well, there's some sounds of a beat, fuck, I don't know. I'm completely out of the loop.
Yeah, the way that most people are doing it is we tried to do the antithesis of that.
But I think Jeff Mills was the first time I heard. I think Jeff Mills, when he did the MSO, was the first time I think I saw it. And so that's the first time I saw the and I thought that's really fucking cool, and it did make a lot of sense. You know, I mean, I'm sure those guys are doing it because it was like, well, let's just fucking see what happens when we fucking, you know, play techno and have a symphony orchestra, you know. But no doubt that would have commercially probably was very viable as well, because, you know, they're obviously very successful.
Yeah, all of those bigger productions are actually the antithesis of what we were trying to do with ours. We were trying to do something small and intimate, where the producers of the music were, you know, heavily involved in all the writing, you know, and the scoring and that kind of thing. Because most of what I've heard of those big productions really just sounds like, you know, orchestral music kind of slapped on top of dance music. And I went to a couple of different shows of people doing that, and it was actually and I went with Mike from Thick as Thieves, and that's what I turned to him at both those shows. I said, this is not working as dance music, and this is not working as classical music. So I wanted ours to work as both, you know. Whether it did or not is, you know, the eye of the beholder. But but yeah, the most of what I've seen of those productions, it seems more about the event to me with those, and not so much about the music. But, you know, it's just me being painful.
Oh, no, it's just your view. I mean, I've never gone to any of those shows, but I just again, when I first saw it, I thought this seems cool, and fuck, why it's taken so long in a way. It's like, yeah, of course. I mean, it made sense to me. Now, whether it worked or whether it didn't work, or again, everyone's got their own view in terms of.
I'm sure if you dug in, there's probably examples of it going back 10 or 15 years. I mean, you know, bands have been doing that sort of.
Well, I think the last time I can recall where a band specifically did that, I think was when Hybrid did their first album using the Russian or Ukrainian Philharmonic fucking and it's actually, again, I don't understand classical music. I don't like you. I don't know shit about it. I just know what I like and what appeals to me. But
did you just say that I don't understand classical music?
I didn't say.
You did, I don't understand classical music.
Well, all right, I stand corrected, fucking cunt.
You just sit down.
I don't understand classical music.
I'm winding this up because I'm going to get nasty now.
But I know. But I know.
Just start yelling abuse at me and it just gets cut off. Like.
But we can do it.
Actually, you're all training and stuff now. You beat the crap out of me, didn't you? If I tried to jump.
I'll kill you with kindness, man. You know that. I'm a fucking lover. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Don't need to resort to that shit.
What?
Just violence.
Just want a bit of wrestling. Just play wrestling.
Oh, play wrestling. Yeah. We'll involve fucking G-strings and pig fat. And,
you had to go there, didn't you?
Yeah, wow.
G-strings and pig fat. Interesting.
Yeah, you know, maybe that could be a title for a song. G-strings and pig fat. I mean, you know, Faces of Meth was a good title.
It's not my song.
Wasn't it? Who?
Nick Coleman.
Oh, that was Nick Coleman. Yeah. You're involved in that. Did you have some involvement in that?
Yeah, I did a remix on it. So.
Oh, that's
and I think my label initially put it out, so I think I came in here. Yeah. I think you mastered about 6 different versions of it for me. So.
Yeah. But anyhow, going back to the point.
He performed that with the orchestra.
No, okay. I don't pretend to know classical music, but I do know what I like. So when I heard that Hybrid album, which was it 2008, 9? No, it was early. Anyway, it was a while ago. And it was the first time I heard a band who were known as did breaks, and we're at the forefront of breaks, said, you know what, and they went all out and did that, and I thought it was fucking amazing. It was a beautiful record to listen to.
I have to check that out. I didn't know about that.
Even listening to, I think it's called Wide Angle. The album's called Wide Angle, and yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Even again, just listening to this fucking military orchestra, what the fuck they were. And over in Russia, you know, they're pretty fucking full on musicians over there.
Oh yeah,
you know, because the government, I mean, the government pay them. That's their job, you know, to be that's their fucking career, and so they do. It was fucking amazing. Yeah, check it out. I haven't heard it for a long time. Again, might be one of those albums I'll go back to revisit again.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
And you know, real love. So listen, before we wind up, what's the best advice you can give a kid who is? I think the biggest challenge that most kids that I come across is like, how do I get my foot in the door? How do I make a living? What are the things? And I know you can't answer this very, but if there's so what do you think? What's one thing that you would tell a kid right now is or at least one of the major things you think is important to consider and take on board as they venture into it?
Probably something along the lines of don't have any expectations of music outside of yourself. You know, like, I mean, if you can just fall in love with music, whatever it is, whether it's playing your guitar, playing drums, DJing, producing electronic music, any of those things, whatever it is, maybe it's just humming words to yourself. If you can enjoy that just at home by yourself, that's the only expectation that you should have, you know. And then if you want to then take that out into the world, that's great. Go out and just push it out into the world any which way you can. But, you know, just trying to have sort of expectations like, you know, I think this is great, therefore everyone else must think it's great. You know, just I think, you know, to invent, like, I've sort of invented a little musical world for myself, you know, that I kind of live in my head, and that's what gives me the most joy and fuels all of my projects. And that's really got nothing to do with anyone. It's all just figments of my imagination. So, you know, if all of the things went away tomorrow, like all of my gigs and all that sort of stuff, I could just hole up in a room with a couple of machines and a guitar and still just love music as much as ever. You know what I mean? I'd miss those gigs and I'd miss making the money from them and stuff, but I could still have fun like that. I think if you kind of have that as a base, you know what I mean? All that other stuff doesn't really matter. You can go out and try to get it. And if you get it, you don't get it, you move on to the next thing, you know? So,
beautiful advice. That's beautiful advice. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Good to fucking see you, man.
You too.
Good chat.
Good talk.
It was a good talk. Oh, we also had a good talk.
Sick party.
Fully sick, mate.
All right,
sick, mate. Yeah, we're out. All right. Well, yeah, we're just about out. Anyway, well, thank you again. Thank you, Backline Project, for once again coming in, setting up the cameras, doing the whole streaming thing. Without you guys, this does not fucking work. And thanks again, T-Rek. Thanks again for those of you who bothered to fucking check it out. And as I always say, please be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. I love you fucks. We'll see you next week with Katie Underwood. All right, take care. See you guys.
She's one of the